Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Deb Calvert. How are you, Deb?
I'm good. I'm honored, Shahid. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
No, it's my honor, actually. So glad that you came about and took the time to come on the show. I know I had a little delay to start doing this because I was kind of, stuck on Clubhouse, but we're back. We're in action. Glad to see you here with us and see if we can add some value to our audience with what you do. So I kind of like to allow our guests to start by introducing themselves, everything that you're involved with and your company. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So my company is called People First Productivity Solutions. We've been in business for 15 years. The three things that we do are a lot more connected than they'll sound at first, but we work in three spaces: leadership development, sales productivity, and team effectiveness. And what we help people do in any of those realms is get connected with each other or with themselves or with their customers. And so we do a lot of focusing on the soft skills. And I'm a buyer side researcher, so I'm often bringing information from receivers as opposed to people who are sending messages, and helping people to understand how their messages are being received in those different three areas.
Mm-hmm. So in a real life situation, can you elaborate on all three areas?
You bet. So when it comes to sales productivity, that's probably the space where I'm best known because I've been in sales my whole life since I was about 5 years old. And
Wow.
so the two books that I've written, Discover Questions, Get You Connected, and Stop Selling and Start Leading, those are based on research with buyers about what they would like to receive from sellers, how they could improve communications, how they could demonstrate their credibility, how they could accelerate the sell by simply understanding how things seem from the buyer's perspective. So sales productivity, it's always about accelerating the sale, being able to make more sales with higher velocity. And buyers will tell us exactly how to do that if we'll just listen and adapt and behaviorally adjust to give them what they're looking for. When it comes to team effectiveness, the work I do is about helping teams build trust and understanding so that they can be more effective and ultimately more productive, just like within sales. I help them to break down any communication barriers. I use assessment tools like the Echo Listening Assessment or Myers-Briggs or DISC personality type assessments, TKI for if there's a great deal of conflict and they're stuck, they're not being able to make that conflict productive and healthy. I help them to figure out ways that they can become more cohesive and therefore more productive. And then when it comes to leadership development, this is for senior leadership teams. I also work with emerging leaders. It's more about personal effectiveness. How do you lead people in ways where they will want to go to the place that they are going to get a better outcome? So leadership productivity often takes the form of personal effectiveness, since what leaders do is guide people. And to guide people, you might not associate that with productivity, but it's about effectiveness, getting them to come with you, to have higher levels of buy-in so that the trip is easier and that you get there faster. So ultimately, everything I do has to do with connecting people for the purpose of being more productive.
Mm-hmm. And in that process of connecting everything, what do you feel is a percentage-wise mindset stuff? Because we're at the end of the day, the company is the people, right? Not the brick and not the building, but it's the people. So what percentage do you work on them regarding mindset?
I'll go so far as to say that 100% of the time, there is an aspect of mindset. Any barrier, whether it's real or perceived, right? If you're stuck, part of that is mindset. It's about how have we always done it, or ways we've never done it, or getting outside my comfort zone, having that growth mindset. There's always an element of that.
Yeah. And you mentioned about when you were 5 years old and selling. Like I'm itching to find out that story, because so what happened there, and what kind of commitment did you make that you actually ended up staying in this field this long?
Yeah. Well, so my parents were both Marine Corps drill sergeants. So they had a
Okay.
certain way. I was the oldest kid, right? They had a certain way of things getting done. And yeah, it's true. Actually, I can still bounce a dime off a bed that I've made. So
Yeah. You
I
still
learned
have
some.
those skills. Yeah.
I do. I do. But there's a discipline to things. Now,
Yeah.
my mom was one of the first U.S. women Marines to go overseas. And she was also one of the first U.S. women Marines to be a recruiter, which, of course, is a sales role. So she saw value. For her, I think, although it wasn't called sales, she saw value in being able to be influential and to help others see things differently. So she was really trying to instill that in me from a young age. What I did at age 5 is I walked around the neighborhood with a little red wagon selling vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, whatever we were growing in our backyard garden. And I learned so many business lessons from that door knocking, and how do I get people to buy it, and by the way, if I have one of my friends helping me, I shouldn't split the proceeds. I learned one day, because we had the investment, we did the work, and at age 5 my dad was helping me learn those things.
Mhm.
But my first official sales job, that was just kind of a thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. The first thing I did was actually at age 6, and that's when I was a campfire girl, a bluebird, and we had a candy sale with an incentive. If you sold a certain number of boxes, 400, you got to get a free campership, a week-long stay at Camp Shawnee, which, although it no longer exists, it's in my memory still my happy place. And so I would sell every year. I would sell so much candy because I wanted at least one, if not 2 or 3 weeks at Camp Shawnee. And I was like shattering all the candy sales records, and it got into my blood. The fact that I could see different ways of helping people get something they need. Because my mom, the recruiter, right, she would teach me, when you go to somebody's front door, you don't say, "Hi, I'm selling campfire candy. Would you like to buy a box?" Instead, because this was in the fall, she'd have me knocking on doors and saying things like, "What are your plans for Thanksgiving and for Christmas gift
Mm.
giving? How could boxes of candy for all your friends really make things easy for you?" I mean, so
Mhm.
imagine this, right? This little chubby cheek
Yeah.
6-year-old on your porch saying things like that.
Huge
So,
difference.
yes.
So that little behavior shift and what you were saying to the person drove the higher sales. So did you achieve it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was only one year that Lorna Kroll beat me by just a couple of boxes of candy.
Can we go
Yeah,
back in time?
yeah.
That is great. So you, for now, are you part, like, are you owner in this company
Yep.
or?
This is my company. I started it a little over 15 years ago. I
Wow.
was coming out of corporate America, and I worked for a Fortune 500 media company. I was a director there, and they sold the company. My job didn't travel to the new company, and I think that's a fortunate thing. And I had options. I had 4 offers on the table, and they were in markets I didn't really want to move to. I'd relocated to California for this job.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go to Fort Wayne, didn't want
Yeah.
to go to Green Bay, or where these jobs were, Boise, Roanoke. They were just all smaller, and I didn't really want to move again. So I called up all 4 of them, and I said, "Hey, would you consider hiring me as a consultant as opposed to hiring me as an employee? Here's what that might look like and why it would potentially be beneficial for you." And within a week, 3 out of the 4 said yes, and that's how my business was born.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So what, the actual transition though from corporate, is there any kind of, what was going on through your mind at that point when you kind of left the corporate to go into business?
Well, all the usual things, right? Can I do this? Am I cut out for it? Will we have the stability? I'm the main breadwinner in my family.
Yeah.
What happens if? I had all those things.
Yeah.
And something I've always done is I believe in a scale. So as I would catastrophize and ask all those worst case scenario questions, I was trying to force myself to be proportionate on the other side. Well, what if this works? what might that look like? What would that mean to the family? You know, so really trying to get a balance. So to make it okay for myself, I set some rules. And the rules were things like, all right, the media industry, where I'm coming from, that's going to give me some business, but maybe that won't last forever. And if I'm really going to be in business for myself, I should expand outside that industry. The writing was on the wall even 15 years ago about some of the troubles they'd have. So I said, within 1 year, I have to have at least half my clients are not from media. At least 25% of my clients are not from referrals of people I already know. I have to be able to go out and sell myself. And within 3 months, I have to be making X amount of money. I don't remember what it was, but I made all those goals within those first 3 months and decided this is going to work. This is what I'm going to do. So it's been a nice ride.
When you look back at that decision, what are your feelings about that specific decision when you said, you know, I'm going to go for it? Do you go back and think about that moment when you made that firm decision?
I do. I think it was one of the bravest and smartest things I've ever done. Yeah. And I wish I had been thinking that direction sooner. My hand was forced because of the sale. Yes. And I wish I would have gone into it with even more gusto, because for those first 3 months, even beyond the first 3 months, although I'd checked all the boxes, I was still interviewing and talking to other people and entertaining other ideas. I wasn't, I just wasn't sure. And it didn't take too much longer. Maybe within 6 months, I was sure, but I wasted time at the beginning. Yeah.
And really everything starts with a decision, right? Some of the greatest things that we experience is that decision. So I'm always interested to hear entrepreneurs and people in business that decision that got them to this point, that reflection of that decision. What does that mean to you now? Right? Like it has so much depth, because if you didn't make that decision, where would you be? Right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And, I'm a person of faith. And so there was a lot of prayer and a lot of, other elements that went into that decision. And I feel and felt very, very blessed throughout the process.
Yeah. Did you ever do any like mindset training? Did you ever work on your core belief system? The limitations, all that stuff that holds people back? Did you ever go through any professional training, or is it through books and stuff? Like what kind of experience you have with that?
I would have to say more books. I am a big follower and fan of Dr. Carol Dweck, so the author of Mindset. So when that was early out, I was in Silicon Valley. I was working with a lot of people in Silicon Valley. And so the work being done there at Stanford, I was sort of tapped in a little bit early. And, I think I'm lucky, because I believe I've always had a growth mindset. I've just been a learner my whole life. I'm the kid who used to have a flashlight and books, and when I'd get in trouble at all, it was because I was reading books in the middle of the night. So I just, I feel lucky in that way. But it's not with everything, right? There are some things, I think, even for people with very strong, healthy, resilient mindsets, that there are certain things that tie us up, right? So I can't say I'm 100% always in that.
It's okay.
Yeah, sure, but but knowing it, right? Knowing is what makes it okay. Oh, I'm operating from a fixed mindset. Wait, is that I got to challenge my belief here? Is that accurate? And
it's that reason factor. The reason factor, how we think. It's something that could be strengthened. So the more you do that, the more you pinpoint at that information, the more you're looking at it, the more you're strengthening it, right? And you're finding answers, finding solutions. So that's great. I love it. Are you all over? Is it a global company, or is it just in the States?
We are global. I primarily operate within the US. It's just easier. But we have had trainers in other countries. We currently don't, although we have bilingual trainers who sometimes work in outside the U.S. I carry currently 2 clients who are outside the U.S., and it's sort of on a case-by-case basis. I mean, that's one of the best things about being an entrepreneur. You get to choose who and how much business you're doing at any given time.
Yeah. Did you ever have to fire a client?
I have,
Yeah.
even recently.
Hmm.
Yes, 3 in total in 15 years.
Yeah. What is that on a uncomfortable level? What is it at 1 to 10? It's difficult, right?
It is. It is, to me, every bit as bad as firing an employee.
Yeah, it is. It is. And sometimes I think naturally we're good people, everybody is just their conditionings and their behavior is different. So at times you just don't click with everyone. It just, even though they might be a great person to someone else, even to you, there's no connection to what you're doing with them. So, it's better that you kind of let go, right? Because it'll be better for them as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if your heart's not in it, if you're not
Yeah.
able to give them, and that's the case with this most recent one,
Yeah.
they'd been my client for 7 years,
Oh,
but
wow.
they changed. I probably changed. We grew
Changed, right.
apart, sort of, and my ability to help them achieve what they wanted to achieve diminished. And it was better for them that I not try to fake it, but it was also better for me and for my brand, right? If I can't give it
I
my
think it's
all,
honorable.
well,
I
thank you.
think, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, honestly, like I don't think anybody should be keeping any client um if you're not serving them, right?
Mhm.
Like if there's any problem with the serving component, could be the person, the seller, the buyer, right? If you're not serving, money is not going to help anybody because it's
Yep.
not going to help you. It's not going to help them sticking around, right? You even help them find someone that'll be more suitable, go the extra hand, but it's honorable, I think.
Well, I thanks for saying that. I do feel that way, and I would I would want them to do the same if the roles were
Yes.
reversed. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, anybody I work with, I tell them, I say, if you're not happy with me, fire me. I have no problem,
yeah,
because my main thing is that I want to be the best client to you. Same way I expect the same with others when I work with them, right? So it's so important to have that realization that you need, even as a client, you have responsibilities, right? Not just the business, but the client also has responsibilities.
absolutely. I tell people,
Yeah.
because a lot of what I do is training and coaching, and
Yeah.
I tell them you're going to get out of this what you put into it.
Yeah.
And I have learned the hard way. I can't care more than they do. I can't put more into it than they're willing to put into it, because
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to force them into
No.
a change in behavior.
Yeah, and it's forcing. You want to do so much at times, right? You want to like say, just do this, just please do this, just take care of this one thing. It's not going to take that much longer. You're like trying to push it, but you cannot. At the end of the day, you can't force anybody to do certain, like you can't. It's just impossible. But you could provide instructions and things that they need to do. If they don't do it, really, what can you do, right? At the end of the day, so.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
for your you mentioned teams. So what is your percentage wise? Like, do you help more teams or do you help individual people as well in sales?
We do both. And
Mhm.
so each year, I sort of measure in those three streams. And then I also measure what am I doing or versus what are other trainers that I bring in as contractors, what are they fulfilling?
Mhm.
So for me personally, right now, a lot of my work is focused on teams after COVID, as groups are coming back together, or perhaps working from home exposed some things. Maybe budgets have been liberated. All this is happening, and people are saying, wow, we really need to get back to working on team effectiveness.
Yeah.
So this year has been a bit of an explosion. Last year, it was all about supervisory skills.
Mhm.
And although that hasn't gone away, well, I'm doing less of it. I have more trainers now, but the demand, right? The inbound incoming calls are much more about teams than they were last year.
Oh yeah, really? That's
Yeah.
the trend.
Or 2 years, even 3 years ago. Yes.
Mhm.
The recognition of that need is greater.
And things have opened up where you are now, right? Like for COVID restrictions.
Where I am, I'm in a rural area in
Okay.
Missouri.
Okay.
We never had a lot of restrictions.
It
I
was fine.
certainly, oh, well, I certainly understand.
Yeah.
where those restrictions were elsewhere. Now, I've traveled already for business. I was in California last week, and then I've been to Chicago for, unfortunately, a family funeral.
Oh,
So
sorry to hear.
I'm been in place. Thank you. But I've been in places where the restrictions have always been significantly greater than they are here. And because of that funeral, my daughter came from. She lives in Vancouver, Canada, where the restrictions are even greater still and are continuing.
I'm in Ontario, Canada.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So she has to have 3 tests before she can be fully out of quarantine. She took her first one here. She's on a plane today. She'll take her next one at the
Yes.
border. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
intense.
Well, I got vaccinated twice, so now I can travel. So
Yes.
I'm taking the family to Florida end of July.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah, it's been so long. We went anywhere. The kids are super excited because they went to, Disney World and Universal Studios 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. So they haven't done anything. So they've been very excited, and the
Yeah.
fact that I believe it's Disney World or Universal Studios, they came out with a new Jurassic Park ride or something like that. It's been in the news.
Mhm.
I didn't check it out, but something new happened this year, so that's exciting as
Oh
well.
yeah, you'll have a good time.
Yeah, and then now for you, I wanted to ask is what's the top area that you're curious about in your industry? Like, what is that? What is that area that you're most curious about in your industry?
I'm really, really interested in seeing what happens as a result of COVID and work from home. You know, every business is going to keep changing. So many of my peers are saying we're back to normal. We can be traveling again now. It's just going to be as it was before. I don't think so. So I'm very curious to see about the hybrid models. And, I think we're going to see shuttering of a lot of offices. There's going to be a long tail effect of that as restaurants near business districts and other businesses are affected. There was this stopgap with COVID. That's not going to continue. So, and where this, then leads back to the work I do is, well, then as that's all taking shape for entrepreneurs and small business owners, because we all have to react to what's going on with the larger businesses. What does it mean? What does it mean if there are more gig workers available? What does it mean if people don't feel tied to big companies, offices, and ultimately benefits? Because there's going to be some give and take. So 5 years from now, I think this is going to be extremely different. And I think there's opportunity for small business owners and entrepreneurs to benefit from that if we're mindful of the impact. Everybody's going to start operating more like we do. Everybody's going to be accustomed to doing things the way we do. There'll be more contractors and others available. I don't know, but that's really something I want to watch and see where it goes.
Yeah, you brought some curiosity in my mind as well, because we just look at it high level, right? We just say, okay, going back to work, but there's so many little details that are affected by that change that we experience. And going back to normal, those little things are going to pop up, their heads, right? You got to start noticing these things. So I am also curious to check that out and keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always about looking for the opportunity, right? So every change equals an opportunity, but we have to be aware of it and not resistant to it to jump in on it.
Yeah, so true, Deb. And we always like to ask our guests what their inner superpower is that got them to this point in their journey.
Mine is not a very glamorous one.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You're all equally amazing.
I don't think I'd trade it for anything else. So I say it's productivity. Just being able to get a lot done in a short amount of time and knowing almost instinctively where to focus and prioritize. My name, Deborah, in Hebrew means the bee. So the bee, right? So bees are very productive.
Yeah.
They don't just buzz around.
We'll work it all day.
They work all day, but they make something out of it. They're strategic and they're smart about how they work together and about how they produce with every flap of their wings they're producing. I don't like busy work. I don't like work for the sake of work. I don't like inefficiency. And I've been pretty able throughout my life to cut to the thing that's going to make the difference the fastest. I had a boss years and years ago who said, Deb gets more done by 10 a.m. than anybody else in this place. And, I kind of thought about that at the time. It was obviously a compliment, but I started thinking about, well, why? And am I working too hard? Could I slack off a little bit, but,
Yeah.
I like that about myself. And I do think it's a superpower for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. And also, in my point of view, I think productivity is stemmed directly to mindset. Because if you don't believe, or if you don't have that faith, or if you you feel kind of weird, you know what I mean? It's so hard to be productive, like to get your body moving. Yeah. It's because, body is the instrument of the mind. So it just lags. Even if you push yourself, you just do productivity, but it's not quality work. So I think it's such a huge component. What I see is happening is, Deb, is because of your parents. I think maybe that their discipline, their work ethics, and their way of bringing that in you in an early age created that paradigm, created that conditioning in the lower part of your mind that you habitually are a productive person. It became your superpower. I love.
Yeah. And I do think there's a certain aspect of being born that way. I think I was lucky that they fanned that, they saw that in me. But, they tell stories about, even when I was little, I always wanted to be learning, doing, busy, never have liked TV, for example. But it's just me. I don't judge that anybody else might have a different value set or superpower.
No, that's great, Deb. Again, I was so super enthused to have you on the show. And now that we met and we talked, I know that you're adding value to the people out there and their lives. And I want you to have the utmost level of success in your journey. Provide these kind of solutions that make, on a fundamental level, individuals, companies, everyone's life better, because the more people can sell, the more they can earn, the better they can provide, the more they can do for humankind. They can do it. So it's just, nothing starts without something being sold. So I'm very grateful for the work that you do, and honored that you came on the show, Deb.
Well, likewise, it was an honor to be here. And I'm, if anybody that's one of your listeners would like to talk more, I always enjoy that. To me, that's part of being productive, is learning and collaborating with other people. So I always like the follow-up conversations too. That's
great. Like Deb said, guys, like if anyone out there listening to this, if you want to DM her or contact her, in the show notes, all the information is there. Get in touch with her, chat with her. You could just tell. That's why I love doing video as well, and voice. You can tell as well, is with the voice, you could hear in someone's voice vibrationally where they stand when it comes to serving you, right? What are their intentions? That when you call a person like Deb, what are going to be her intentions? You can tell all that stuff by someone's voice and the way they speak, the way they talk. All this stuff is called nonverbal communication. And you can see without words being said, definitely she has an open door policy. Get in touch with her. Again, thank you for following the show here, Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Invite other people, get other people involved to listen to these guests that we bring on the show. Subscribe, share, be part of the community. Also, my DMs are always open with love. You know that. And again, thank you so much, Deb. Thank you, everyone else. Have a great day.